Hello there, it's Jan from JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me today. I hope your day's going well. I've got something a little bit different again today. I'm very excited about this. As a lot of you know that follow us, I used to work for Crafters Companion along with two of my colleagues that they let go just over a year ago now. And Corinne started her own channel over at Corinne's Crafts, and Michelle started her own channel here on YouTube as well. And she's also got into designing papers, and they are absolutely beautiful. And she contacted me the other day and said, would you like to have a play with some of them, Jan? And of course, you know how much I love paper. If I showed you my craft room, if I ever get round to doing a tour of the craft room, you know, the paper content is ridiculously high. To such an extent that I've had to move some of it actually out of the conservatory because I'm running out of space. But yeah, do you want to play with some of the papers? Of course I did. So thank you to Michelle. This is actually just one of her collections, and so me. It's called The Raven and the Writing Desk. And I chose the 6x6, but you can get this in 8x8 or 12x12, and they are the most exquisite designs. I absolutely love everything about it. I love the colour scheme, I love the content, I love that vintage vibe to it. You know, even what's in there, the books, I am an avid reader. The camera, I'm forever taking photos. The Raven's another story, maybe for another day, but it is something that is relevant. But if I show you some of these, you know, even, you know, the old vintage cameras and things, all the dried flowers, absolutely, because just the detail, all the peeled paint in the background, just look at these, absolutely beautiful. The old gramophone there. I love my music. Both my girls are into music. Little box camera. So yeah, as soon as she said that, I thought, it's got to be this particular collection. It really has. So you can see all those different designs. There's a lot of the cameras left and the telephone, but there were also a couple with typewriters. Oops, I think there was one more of those, was there? Oh, that was the last one. Yeah, there's a couple in there that have got typewriters, which is what I've chosen for my project. So yeah, first of all, thank you to Michelle. So if you don't know Michelle, if you haven't come across her, pop over and have a look. You can find her at Michelle McCarthy Crafts over on Facebook or on YouTube. And she does have a Facebook page called Michelle Max Crafters, and she's got all the paper collections in albums over there. So go and check her out, and say hi there, and say that, you know, tell her that I've sent you across there. And this is what I've actually made today. So this is for me. I wasn't giving this away. Absolutely gorgeous paper. And I chose the one with the typewriter on because, again, this is something I've been after for a while. I keep dropping hints to my hubby. I'd love an old vintage typewriter, but I don't think he's brave enough to choose one. He needs me to say, I found this, will you buy it me? So yeah, it's something I've been keeping my eyes open for a very long time. I would love one of these. So that was the one that I've chosen, and I've actually made what I've called a book box. So again, not my idea. There are a lot of these out over on YouTube, and all I did was have a look at a couple of videos, and then I've altered the measurements to suit what I wanted. So because I asked Michelle for the 6x6 papers, I've sort of used that as my focal point and then built it up from there. So my book measures 7.5 inches. And it is 2.5 inches in depth. Okay, and then when you open it up, it has got a little pocket in the front here, which you can pop in tags or, you know, postcards, photos, anything like that that you're working on. And then it's got the box, which has got another one of those beautiful papers on top. And it's just got a little box for keeping either ephemera or projects, you know, that you're working on, embellishments, things like that in here. Now the actual collection does have a set of background papers with it, and I didn't realize that at the time, I must admit. Hence why Michelle said to me, is that all you'd like, Jan? And I realize now that the background papers were separate. So what I did was have a look in my stash, and I have a pad which I'll show you in a second that's got some very similar, you know, kind of color tones. So I went through the stash, had a look at pulling out some items that would work with it, and obviously the black was a choice for the binder because of the raven there. So yeah, this is what I've made. This is what I'm going to show you how to put together. It's got some papers out of that pad, mix and matched with the focal points there, which are those gorgeous papers from our Michelle. So let's get into that tutorial, and I'll show you how I've put this together. So the first thing that I did, if I put that one to the back for a second, the first thing I did was have a look through my own stash to see what I'd got to go with it. And I pulled out lots of different things that I thought I might want to craft with. So I've got some black card. My base card was just plain black card, and that's what we're going to make the book from. I also pulled out some pearlescent black, which I haven't actually used, so I'm going to pop that over to one side. Just thought it was a possibility. And then I went through my own stash and had a look at items that matched the colour scheme. So it has got like a tinge of purple in there. If you have a look at some of the papers, let's have a look. This one in particular, you can see that sort of pinky purple, but I don't think I actually ended up using that. Went along with these sort of deep rose pinky red tones. So we'll pop that one to one side. But yeah, you can see here where I've picked out, you know, the colours that actually match the background paper. So this is just linen cardstock out of my stash, and I've used some of that throughout the design process. And then I also had a paper pad which I had in mind. This is one that I've had for a long time. Craft ID, I can't even remember where it was from. I would hazard there are 3 places that I tend to go to shop if I'm going out to shop. We have Hobbycraft here in the UK, we have the Range that has a small craft section, and the Works you can sometimes pick things up in. So this one, not quite sure which one of those shops, and as I say, I've had it a while now, so I'm not sure whether it's still available. But when you look at the colour scheme in here, it was absolutely perfect. So I've used a number of patterns out of here. This is actually what's left of it. But yeah, I just thought, you know, perfect for what I wanted to go with it. This particular piece, this is this one here, I've definitely used. You can see the scraps left over from that one. And then I've used some of the other patterns as well. I've got one that's got a very small polka dot on, which I think is this one. I think I've used the grey marbled one for the front cover. So all things that fit in with that particular colour palette was where I started. So we're going to make the book cover first, and I have got some of it done already because I didn't want the video to be, you know, too long. So I'm going to pop those papers to one side, and I'm going to bring in the components that we need to make the book cover. So I've got 2 pieces. Now I've used mount board purely because I have a lot of it, but you can use chipboard, you can use grey board, you can even use the backs off your paper pads or old cereal boxes, as long as it's something a bit more substantial than just a paper. And this particular one's not a massively heavy weight. Let me just double check. It's the Crafter's Companion black card. It's 250 GSM, so you know it's heavy enough, but by the time it's got all the mats and layers and things on, it's not going to be a problem. So I've got my piece of mount board here, and this one's probably about, I would say, 2 mil, something like that. And I've cut a piece that's 7.5 by 7.5. You're going to need 2 of these, one for the back cover, one for the front cover. Now the front one I've already got done, and I'll show you that in a second. And then you're going to need to cover these with your chosen cardstock. So I'm going for the black. I want that lovely black base for this. Obviously the ravens are black, and that was a perfect choice. So what I've done is I've gone 7.5 inches square, and then I've added 1.5 inches, I think it was, on each side for the wrap. Let me just double, yeah, 1.5 inches. So I've added 3 inches in total. So the 7.5 plus 3 means that I've cut my paper there. I don't know whether you can see that. I've just popped it in pencil, 10.5 inches square. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is actually do some scoring. So at that 1.5 inch mark, which is what I'd allowed for my wrap, I am literally just going to score all 4 sides at 1.5 inches. Now I have actually prepped a lot of this because I didn't want the video to be too long. So you can see, you know, I'm going over my score lines there that I'd already popped in. So 1.5 inches on all 4 sides for this one. And then I've added my tape I find it easier to do this. We're actually going to trim the corners of this, but I find it easier to pop the tape on first, otherwise you're cutting everything at an angle, which gets a bit tricky. So I've put my tape just in the rectangle section. So this is the piece that's going to fold over and stick to my piece here. So the first thing I'm going to do is get that stuck down, and I have, unusually for me, gone with quite a bit of double-sided tape for this. I've got a very strong double-sided adhesive tape from Sticks 2, and this is quite a wide one. So I've covered the back of my piece of mount board, and I am also going to use some wet glue as well. When you're making something like this that you want to keep, like I said earlier, this one's for my own stash. I'm going to keep this in my craft room. I couldn't resist with that beautiful paper from Michelle. So yeah, I'm actually hanging on to this one. So I've made this, you know, with my own requirements in mind. But what I am going to do to stop that outside paper sort of bubbling where there's a gap, I'm going to pop a little bit of wet glue just down the middle of those tracks where the double-sided tape doesn't go. And the reason I've used the double-sided tape is that it does dry a lot quicker. With something like this, you are wanting it to dry as quick as possible. So I'm just going to centre that the best I can in there and give that a good stick down. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift these edges and just gently burnish them against the edge of that mount board. Okay, and I'm going to do that on all four sides. So I'm just lifting it up again, using the edge of the mount board as a guide, and just helping to start break down those fibres on the back of here. So just pushing it against the edge of the mount board. It's thick enough there to actually use that as a guide. And then we need to trim the corners. Now, I've got a little gadget that I made myself here, just so that I've got, you know what I'm like with my OCD. Yes, I'm going to cut the corners off, and yes, you could just cut the corner off. But, you know me, I like everything to be the same. So I've got a little gadget that I've made that I'm going to pop on here. And this allows me to just put myself a guideline in here, and I know it's going to be the same on all four sides. So there's about 1/4 of an inch here from the corner of the mount board to where I'm going to cut. If you cut too close to the mount board, you'll see this poking through when we've wrapped the corners round. So I'm going to go around each corner and just draw those on, and then we're going to snip away those pieces and fold it round. So nice and simple. Okay, so that's that piece, and then I'm going to take my scissors here, and I am just going to follow that line, that pencil line now. And yeah, I am cutting off a little bit of the tape, but like I say, I find this easier than messing about trying to cut all these angles when you're using the double-sided tape. So I'm just going to cut straight across those pencil lines, take away the bulk so that we can address the corners when we wrap this around, and then we're going to use the tape to stick these pieces down onto the other side of the mount board there. Okay, so you can see now these are going to fold in and we can actually stick them down. So we're going to do that next. I'm going to remove my double-sided adhesive again, well, the liner off the adhesive. And because I'm actually doing multiple layers, I'm quite happy. I know sometimes I've talked about double-sided adhesive drying out, but we're actually going to put layers on the front of this. We're going to put paper on the inside of this. There are so many opportunities for this to sort of be held in place. So all I'm going to do is just take this across, start in the middle here, wrap it as tight as I can, and then burnish that tape in place. And then I'm going to go the opposite side again, bring it round in the middle, burnish everything in place. Make sure you've got all the air bubbles. And then what I'm going to do with the other end of my bone folder is where you should have a little tiny bit here that's extended where we left that 1/4 of an inch. I am just going to run my bone folder. Now you want that to be completely flat. So at each end, against the edge of the mount board there, I'm just bringing that so that it's, I know it's hard to see on the black card, but I've basically folded it flat so we can now bring this over as well. So again, using the edge of that mount board, making sure that it's as flush as it can be, and then give it a burnish. And what happens is you get those nice tight corners without any of the mount board showing. If we cut too close, it would expose the corner when we folded it all round. So last one there is going to go on here. And again, we'll just give that a nice burnish. And I'm quite happy now that all that is secure. So that's going to be my back cover. Okay. And I've actually got some mats and layers ready for this. Okay, so on the outside we're going to put a mat layer, and I'm also going to put a piece of paper on the inside. But just before I do that, I want to bring some of the other elements in. So I've got all my pieces together in sort of little collections so that I know which bit's which, because there are a lot of pieces for this one. So I'm going to leave those in that one. These are my front cover pieces. These are the spine pieces. We're going to need to do the same for the spine. So I'm just going to put that one together next. But I'm also going to show you that you need to do this one twice. Okay, so I've now got a front and a back cover. And we're going to make a 2.5 inch spine to go in the middle there. And that's exactly the same process. So I'm just going to whip through that really quickly. I have got the tape on the back again. Just the same. Alright, so I've made this the same height as the book, and I've made a 2.5 inch spine. So the depth of the book depends on what you're wanting to put inside. Okay, so this one measured 7.5 by 2.5, and then I've actually got my piece again that I've added extra pieces onto. So I've got 10.5 by 5.5. Okay. So I've added the 3 inches onto each side. And again, what we're going to do is we're just going to pop this in the middle and get that as nice and straight as we can. Give that a press down. Okay, I'm going to use my corner again, but this time I'm just going to bring the line down to the top here. All right, so I just want to take it off this part. We're just going to wrap a piece over the top here. I'm going to use these pieces at the side to fasten it to the front and back cover. So again, all I want to do is just go from this line here, and we're just going to take it across that corner. So again, I'm first of all going to cut level with that top edge, and then I'm going to use my pencil line to just take off the corner there. So again, cut the level with the top edge, and then take the corner piece off like so. And then we need to do the same at the other side. So again, this one and this one. And then we're going to come in and cut along those pencil lines and just take away those edges. So these are all scrap. And then what we're going to do is exactly the same as what we did before. We need to bring up these top pieces, and we're going to stick those over. In fact, I can snip away. I don't actually need the corner on it this time. I'm going to take those little triangles out of there as well, like so. Okay, so we've got this side. Bring it up against that mount board again, and we're going to stick these two in place. So we'll remove the liner from the tape, bring it up as tight as you can, and get that stuck down. And then the same at this side. Take that liner away and then bring it over as snug as you can get it and pop that side down. Okay, now I'm going to do the same with these edges. I'm going to use that card just to fold this in like so. I've got a little tiny bit where I didn't snip it very well, so yeah, don't be afraid to just trim it if you need to. And these are what we're going to fasten to the front and back covers. So we're actually going to pop them together like so. Okay, before I put the paper on this side and the back of it. And then I've got a piece of paper to go in the middle to cover this one up as well. So I'm going to use my red line tape this time rather than the double-sided adhesive, just because this is the bit where the book's going to open and close. So all I'm going to do now is run the widest one of my tapes. Now then, it wants to be on the other side, Jan. We need to do it on this side because this is the bit that's going to stick to our front and back cover. And then I'm just going to trim this one and put a couple of strips on each side here, like so. Make sure they're burnished well so that all the air bubbles have come out of it, and then we're going to do the same on this side. Okay, and last one. On there. Okay, so again, like I said, give it all a good burnish. Make sure that it goes much darker when you've got this burnished down properly. And you want to make sure that it's all made contact with the cardstock underneath. Can you see how it's gone much darker than this side now? So yeah, just make sure that you've got all those air bubbles out before you release the liner, and you know that you're going to get a good contact then. So what we're going to do then is we're going to stick this onto the side of the book, and I'm just going to line up the two pieces. So again, remove the liner, get rid of those, and we're going to start with my front. These are both the same, so it doesn't really matter which ones you do first. And then I apologise if my head gets in the way, but I do need to make sure that these are lined up to the best that I can get them. There we go. So you should end up with a nice neat edge here on this side. Okay, and then once you're happy with that, again, everything's about burnishing. When you're making something like this that's got a long, you know, sort of life, hopefully this is going to last a while, you want to make sure everything's stuck down really well. And then we're going to do the same at this side. So just remove the liner again, and then I'm going to pop this one on this side here. So we'll do it this way up so that you can see this time I'm just lining it up with that score line. It's the edge of my piece there, and again you've got that lovely flush edge. So once you're happy with that, when it folds, it should all fold across nice and even. And again, I am now just going to burnish this in place. Okay, now I realise that I need a piece of black. I haven't cut a piece of black for this, so we need to cover this middle bit first. So I'm going to take a piece of I've got some black left here, and we need to cut this at 7.5, if I remember rightly. So I'm going to cut it just a smidge under, so about 7 3/8, and I'm going to go just each side, so we'll do about 3.5. All right, so let me just get my trimmer, and we want a piece that measures 7 3/8 there by 3.5. So that's just giving me a 1/2 inch at either side, so that I've got a little bit of strength in that spine. So a bit more scrap there. So yeah, we're going to stick this over the top here like so. So again, because this is going to have quite a bit of movement in it, I am going to run some red line tape down either side on here. So again, we just need to trim that out, and the same at this side. And then I'm going to use the wet glue in the centre. Okay, so trapping that wet glue in the middle there. Right, let's just get rid of a few of my implements so that I've got some space there. So yeah, we're going to take off the liner for that red line tape. And then I'm going to use the wet glue in the middle of that panel, because that's going to adhere now to the piece of mount board that we put in the middle here. So all I'm going to do, I need some more actually, I've got, this one's getting very low. Yeah, it's just cover that middle section there with some of my wet glue, and then I'm going to pop this one down and I'm going to line it up so that I've got an even, there's about I've allowed for about ½ inch on each side. Excuse my head if it gets in the way there. I just need to make sure that that one is, ooh, come on, let go for a minute. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to give that a really good press where the red line tape is. And then you should be able to feel in there where this part is, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a score while I bend it, and the same at this side. So just gently lifting and just easing those fibres, and then ideally we need to let that dry before I bring those two sides up. So I'm going to leave that one to dry. We'll put our inside panels on while we're waiting. So for the front and back on the inside, I've taken some of that lovely paper from my paper pad. So I need, let's have a little look. The front one as well should have a piece of that. Yep, there we go. And then I've also got the same, so all the inside of the book is going to look the same. So all my dark paper, all my sort of burgundy colour, I've gone around the edges of it with some matching ink just to get rid of, because I'm working on black card, I didn't want this has got a white core and I didn't want that showing. So I wanted to make sure that everything was covered so that there was no white edges showing. So again, I'm going to have to investigate whether I've got some more all-purpose glue, I think, because this one's getting very low. But I'm going to use that now to stick these on the inside. So again, these are just slightly smaller. So my book is 7.5 inches square. These will be 7.25 inches, so that I've got a little bit of the black border showing all the way around. So that's number one. And then we're going to do the same on the back. And it did use quite a bit of my paper and cardstock, but I have got oodles of it, and I'm constantly trying to get you guys to use your stash, craft your stash. We've all got hordes and hordes of stuff, and especially if it's something that you're making for yourself, you know, you don't mind, because you can still sit and enjoy all these beautiful papers. Now, I know I haven't used my shells yet, but I haven't forgotten. They're going to be my focal points for a couple of the places on that book. You saw the one on the front, and then you saw that gorgeous box on the inside. So we're going to use those as our main focal points. And I just want the paper to do the talking. I am not going to add much else as far as embellishment or decorations concerned. So again, this strip, okay, is the 7.25, and this will be by 2.25, I believe, because I've come down 1/4 inch. Yeah, 2.25 inches. So the spine was 2.5. So I've just come down 1/4 inch so that there's a little bit of that black showing all the way around. There we go. So that's most of the inside. I've got that one more feature to put on the this left hand panel, and then we're going to add our box to this one, but I just need that to dry now for a little bit. Let that wet glue do its job, and then we're going to bring these up, and you can see we've got really nice sturdy bookbinder there. Now you might, you know, if you want to have a go at this, you might want to leave it like that. You might want to use this to just put, you know, sort of signatures in, or you might want to put a notebook inside it. You know, you might have different plans for it. I'd made mine into my book box. Not quite decided what I'm going to keep in it yet, but I am sure I can find something. All right, so that's looking like this so far. I have got a note on the front here that says magnet, because I'm not sure yet whether I'm going to put the magnet on the front or not. That's something I'm sort of having a think about. I've got the magnets out ready, as to whether, it depends how well it sits with the box, as to whether the magnet closure will work or not, or whether it actually needs it. So I'm going to leave that to dry now, let all that glue dry underneath here before we do any more to the cover, and we'll start on the box. So again, I have got a couple of pieces ready. Pop that one in there. So I'm going to make the box base. I've already done the lid. They are pretty much the same, exactly the same size to start with, the same sort of idea. I'll talk you through the lid. So the box base, I wanted the box to measure, I think it was 6.5. Yeah, 6.5 inches. So that left me, once that box is sat on here, I will have a 1/2 inch border all the way around with some of that paper showing. So I've added the depth of the box, which I wanted to be 2.25 inches. So I've added 4.5 inches to my 6.5 and arrived at 11 inches square. All right, so again, a piece of the black that I used for the covering the mount board, and we're going to score this at 2.25 inches. Now I use the Crafter's Companion scoreboard, and this has got a box lid and a box base side. So I've already done the lid. I'm going to flip it round and we're going to use the box base. All right, and that's just allowed for the lid to fit over the top. If you make them both exactly the same side, they're just going to meet together instead of one going over the other. So we want to score at 2.25 on all 4 sides. And this one's really, really simple. We're going to make a little bit of a cut, and then we're going to stick it together. So all 4 sides at 2.25 inches. Okay, to one side, and then I'm going to score, fold and burnish all my pieces. Now if I just flip it over, I have actually started adding some of the paper, because you don't need to see me just sticking pieces of paper. These are going to be the base of the box, and this is the sides of the base of the box, if that makes sense. This is the underneath that we're going to stick into the actual book when we're finished. So my pieces that I put on here measure 2 inches by 6.25. So again, just 1/4 inch smaller than the panel that we've got left. So I'm going to fold and burnish all those score lines that we've just made across all 4 sides, using the bulk of that cardstock to press against my fold line. Okay, we can give those a little burnish in place. And again, on the other 2 sides. And then I'm just going to cut into this now with my scissors. So I'm going to cut along that score line, leaving a nice neat edge, and then I'm going to take a little section out of there. You can see how much, about 1/2 inch that I've cut out of it. Rotate and do this on all 4 of the corners. So this is just creating us a glue tab. So yeah, about 1/2 inch in, and then take it up to that same corner point. Just helps get everything straight and doesn't leave any pieces sort of sticking out of the box when it's finished. So my box is going to be 2.25 inches deep, but the lid isn't quite as deep, so that when we put it together you can still see some of the paper that we've got here. Okay, so we've got those bits cut out. Those are scrap, get those in the bin. and then we're literally going to pop this together. Now I am going to use my acrylic glue just because it grabs and dries a bit quicker than the all-purpose. So yeah, you can use your tape on these again if you wish, but I am actually going to pop my acrylic glue on all 4 of these tabs. I hope you can't hear the wind, guys. I hope it's not picking it up on the video. It is very, very windy here today. And as a lot of you know, I'm in my conservatory, so it gets a bit leery at times when it starts blowing like crazy. So apologies if that's what you can hear in the background. So yeah, just popping that glue all over those glue tabs that we've created. Oops, preferably not on the pattern paper jam. And then I am literally just going to bring these up to a 90-degree angle, and you should find that this edge folds in nice and straight. Give it a good press, and that's why I've used this particular glue, because it does grab quite quickly and it dries matte, so if any of it does seep out round the edge of the box, I'm not too worried about it there. So again, nice and neat along that top edge. And then we've got all those pieces together there. And then I'm just going to go around each one and give them a really good press. Again, spread that glue out, make sure it's all made contact. So all I'm doing is going inside with the bone folder and pressing against that tab, spreading out the glue. And it's the attention to detail like this when you're making something that you want, you know, so longevity from. I just think these are the little details that are worth adding into your crafting. So we've got our box base there, and then I've cut a piece of that paper, that pattern paper, and we're going to drop this on the inside there. So again, swapping and changing my glues for different purposes. I'm now going to go back to that all-purpose glue because this dries really nice and hard, so it's going to add strength. All my matte layers were put on with the same glue. And then we're going to drop this inside and cover the base. Again, optional. Now that bit was cut to 6 1/4 inches, so it's got a nice little black border around the edge there. And that's the inside of my box there. Okay, now I said I'd already done the lid because it is pretty much the same process. The only difference is I've made the lid slightly shallower. We've gone at 1 1/4 instead of 2 1/4, so that when we pop it together you can still see some of that nice grey paper here. I've done matte layers to go on the sides of the box, so I've used that pink that I showed you at the beginning. This is the same black cardstock that I've used for the base of the box and the lid of the box, and then I've popped it through one of my embossing folders. So this is just an old Crafter's Companion embossing folder with a lovely, I love the distressed texture on here. I've used this for the covers as well. I'll show you that in a second when we get to those. So yeah, I've just gone round the outside here, and again I've made myself a note because I'm not sure whether this is going to go in here, and I think it might work with the magnet on. It's just whether it's going through a fair few layers. We'll try it and see. If it doesn't work, I've not really lost anything. I just thought it would be a way of keeping it closed because I didn't want to put a big fancy ribbon closure on it. So I think what I'm going to do is take a couple of magnets before we add any of the trimmings. And then I'm going to pop some, I use my red line tape for these. And just pop some of that onto the magnets to keep it in position. So I just want a couple of little squares of that, and we're going to pop one on the top of the box here. And I'm going to go slightly higher up than the center, and then the other one, it could have gone under this side, couldn't it? But I've actually put the paper on there now, so we need that one to go on the top. So what I will do is put my tape on one of these, like so. Just grab that piece of tape for a second. I'm going to take the liner off there. Oh, I've got bits of tape and all sorts going on now. And then I'm going to pop that one. This is never easy because the tweezers are metal as well. So here we go. This one's going to go on top of the box. All right, but I'm going to go slightly higher than the center because I don't want it to interfere with the pocket. So I'm going to go sort of up here with it. All right, now this piece, it could have gone under the paper here if I'd have thought about it. I was thinking it needed to be on the front cover. So what we'll do is we'll see if they can find each other. So all I tend to do is pop this one on here and you'll see it's literally found its partner underneath. Yeah, and I can feel. Now whether it will still work by the time we've got all the mats and layers on, I'm not sure. So I'm going to flip this over, put the tape on, and we're going to see whether we can get that in the right position. As I say, may work, may not work, I'm not sure. So yeah, we've got, I'm going to stick the box in, I think, and then I know exactly where it's going to be. So let's just pop that on hold for a second, and I'm going to pop my box. So I think what I'm going to do with that is use some of my double-sided adhesive underneath here, and then we're going to add some wet glue as well because I really don't want this going anywhere. So I've got some nice wide double-sided adhesive, and this is all from Sticks 2 today, all the adhesives that I've used. And so we'll just pop 3 pieces of that on, just for extra insurance. Give that a good press. Make sure it's all sealed. Remove that liner. Oh, there we go. And that one. And then I'm going to add, if I've got enough of this one left, I'm going to add the wet glue as well, just so that it doesn't grab and stick before I'm ready. So I'm going to put this over the whole thing. It's extra, it'll give you some extra strength. And as I say, it'll make sure that the tape doesn't grab before I'm actually ready. And I will apologise because I am going to have to pop my head over the top of here now to get this in place. So I've got my book the right way round. This is the back. The flowers, I don't think I've got a particular, but just remember, if you've got a directional paper in here, you know that you want it to be facing the right way. And then I'm just going to hover over the top, and I should have about a ½ inch all the way around the box. And as I say, the wet glue is preventing it from grabbing. I can still move it slightly even though I've got that double-sided tape. And then once you're happy with the position, we can then commit to that stick. And I want to apply plenty of pressure on the base of the box there so that the glue is adhering, which will need time to dry, but that double-sided tape is adhering to the back as well. Okay, now you may not want the lid on the box. You know, I've seen lots of these where it is just literally the, you know, the binder that folds over it. Got a little bit of glue seeping out there, but as you all know, any of you that are fans of this glue, it wipes away beautifully. And I can also, if it does show, I can use my glue eraser when I've finished, but I'm quite happy that that's going to dry okay. So yeah, that looks good to me. I'm quite happy with the positioning. So you can see that I've got around about ½ inch all the way around the box there. Okay, so this is going to be our design. So if we go back to the lid now, we can pop the lid back on, and then I'm going to see if I can get that magnet there. I can feel the grab from the other magnet underneath. Now, as I say, the layers that we're going to add on may be too thick, but yeah, it is actually stopping it from, I'm not sure on that. We will soon find out when we get all the other layers on, but it's there just in case. Okay, so what we're going to do now then, we need to have a look at the front and back cover, I think. So again, this is going to be my matte layer. And I showed you some of the cardstock that I'd been using at the beginning. So I've used the linen card to make the mats. That was that lovely grey marble paper from my paper pad. And I've matted these together, again, going 1/4 of an inch down each time, added some ribbon. And then we've got that beautiful piece from our Michelle there. Okay, and it just fits perfectly in there. So I started off with the paper, and I've actually designed the book to fit that. So my paper I did cut down slightly. It was a 6 by 6 inch pad, and I've cut it down to 5 3/4, and then added my matte layers. So I've got some pink, which is a slightly lighter one than this one, just to echo all this colouring in the design. And then I've got some matte silver mirror card in there. Got a little bit of foam tape, well, I'm saying a little bit, quite a lot of foam tape on there. Again, because this is something I'm keeping, I wanted to make sure that everything was going to be stuck in place. So that is going to be my front cover. So let's pop him to one side. I just love, absolutely love. I want to get hold of one of these old vintage typewriters. The book, you know, I'm a writer. I write everything down. I've got loads of notebooks, love a nice pen. As I say, if Michelle had designed this for me, it would have been the perfect choice. The colour scheme, the content, absolutely everything. So yes, let's get these popped on here. So again, I've got some prep already. So I've gone with that tape around the outside again. And I'm going to do a mixture again of the tape and the glue. If we can get the liner off, she says. Everything's been stubborn today. There we go. 1, 2. So I've just gone around the outside with that thick double-sided tape, and this one's actually about 5/8 of an inch. It's a real nice one for anything like this, because you're getting that, you know, sort of double the width of a normal double-sided tape. If I show you them on the roll, I've got, that's the wide one, and this is the one that I normally use. So you can see you've got that double width, which is great for anything like this. And then again, I am just going to pop a little bit, because I want the whole thing to run and sit without any sort of movement underneath it, a bit of that wet glue as well. So we make sure that's the right way up, although I don't think there isn't a right and a wrong way with this, because that went through the middle, so I think we're good. And then we're going to pop this with that small black border again all the way around. And once I'm happy with that, give that a press in place. I'm going to open it up again, just so that I can put some pressure on the back. I'm going to leave this one until I'm nearly ready for finishing, so that I can put that on last. And I've got exactly the same for the back of the box. Okay, so when I find all my pieces of paper now that I had, this is exactly the same, minus the piece of ribbon, because I'm not going to have the matte layer on there. So again, I've done exactly the same. And apologies for all the, you know, watching me glue things down, but I wanted to go through, I did consider whether to, you know, I know some content creators speed up this bit, but you're used to watching me demo now. And I think sometimes, you know, the editing process is not a quick process. And if you don't want to watch all this side of it, then you can just, I mean, I do it sometimes when I'm watching people. You can just skip through, you know, this part. If you know that I'm just going to stick that bit on there and you don't actually want to watch it, then just skip through. I will not be offended. So that one's going to go on the back there. And again, we're going to open up. We're going to remove the lid and use that base to add some pressure at the back, making sure that everything has made good contact and that we've got all that glue spread out on that back panel. Okay, so that's my front and back cover. We need to do the spine. I've got the same for the spine. Now I've changed it up a little bit because I've gone back to that lovely paper that we had inside the box, so mixing and matching. And I've also got a little tiny bit of decoration for this one. Not done a lot. I've just marked down about 1 inch down and halfway across and popped an eyelet in there. And then in my stash, I've got this lovely sort of key. So I think I'm going to pop that one on the back before we stick it on. So I'm going to thread this through the eyelet. And this was an afterthought, which is why I've ended up going through my double-sided tape there. But I think we can probably get away with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that central bit to stick the twine down. Okay, so we'll take the liner just off that piece first. I will determine how long I want the key. And again, I'm going to stick this down so that it's not sort of dangling about. I think we're going to go sort of about like so. Right, I want that so that it's facing that way, and I want the twine to be straight. So just, and this is me being pedantic again, you know what I'm like. But yeah, round about there, I reckon. So we can hold that in place. And then I'm going to use that piece of sticky that I'd already put in to stick that down on the inside. Okay, and then we will pop this. I don't think it's going to be enough of a problem that it's going to cause an issue for sticking it down. But you know, my double-sided tape is not being very friendly today. This is why I prefer the wet glue normally. And again, I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to pop the little bit that's left. Oh dear, we're getting to the dregs now. Down those gaps, and I'm going to put a little bit over the twine there, not giving it any chance not to stick where I want it to go. Stand this up now, and then I've got to juggle with the key and get that one in that central position. Yep, I think that'll work. And again, we'll press the sides down. There's a tiny little ridge in the middle, but there's enough of that to actually fasten it inside. And again, give some pressure, make sure everything's stuck down. And then I'm going to use a glue dot to secure the key so that it's not wobbling about all over the place. Okay, I don't want it to be sort of floating about. I want it to be as a feature on the back there, like so. So I'm just going to use a couple of my glue dots, and I'm going to turn this over and pop one on the back here. In fact, that one might be enough just to hold it in position. Don't stick to me, I've got to stick to the box. Does anybody else talk to their crafting? I know I do, and I just sometimes think I'm losing the plot. But yeah, I'm just going to use that, and that should be enough, I think, to hold it in place there. Fab. Okay, quite happy with that. Might want another one under the back of there. I might pop one under there to start. Yeah, I think it does. Okay, so again, we'll take one off there, and I'm just going to slide that under the head of the key and the back of the twine. And then we've got that's better. I'm happy with that now. Fab. Okay, so it's coming on nicely. You can see, don't know what we've got going on there. I'm hoping that's going to cover that. Looks as if I've caught it with some. Yeah, that's going to cover that up perfectly. Right, couple of last bits to do then. We have got, let's have a look. I've done that bit. So the front cover, I am actually going to put a pocket in there. And then we've got our second matte layer that's going to go on here. So another piece. I wanted them sort of, they're not identical, but the theme is the same. We've got the books, here. We've got the raven, we've got the notebooks, the pens, the quills, and the floral arrangements. All right, so I wanted them to be very similar. So this is going to be my front one that's on tons of foam. This one I'm going to do flat on the top of here. Okay, and then all I've done is I've made a little pocket that I'm going to pop on the inside, just in case I want to sort of add any extra elements to it. So I've got, let's have a look. I've not put any, I normally put the sizes on for you guys, but I've missed that step today. So this measures 8 inches, and I've got a 1/2 inch tab on each side. So my pocket measures 7, which is slightly smaller, again, so that we've got all those borders, it's all in keeping. And then the pocket is 4 inches deep, so it's going to be 3.5 when we've folded up the 1/2 inch glue tab. And then I've just added a little bit of decoration to it using one of my, had this for ages, you've seen me use this one before. I think it's a magnolia die. Absolutely love it for a border. So I've cut the black in there just to add a little bit of detail, and then I've used a bit of the silver strip just to tie in the silver card that I used on here. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take those corners. I've got a little tiny corner where it, and I'm going to snip those out, and then we're going to stick this into that inside front cover there. Okay, so these are going to fold in, that one's going to fold in, and then it's going to stick in here. And again, I'm going to use the red line tape for this because I know that it's a really nice strong one. So we'll pop this along the bottom here, like so. So I've just run it under that score line, and then I'm going to do the same down the sides, like so. And the same on this one, and we're nearly there. I know it's a bit longer video today, but it is a special one. It's I've actually loved making this, I really have, and having a chance to play with some of Michelle's papers at the same time, it's been great. So yeah, I'm going to do this one bit at a time. I think we will take off the bottom, okay, and then I'm going to get that one folded up, and we can stick this in place. Fold these on the inside for a minute, and then I want to make sure that I've got that same border all the way around again. So there should be about 1/4 inch border. If you want it level with the base of the cover, you can. And then once I've done that, we can take these elements off and get that stuck in as well. So this gives me the opportunity to, I'm thinking I'll probably use this to keep some of my tags and ephemera in when I'm making embellishments and things. The embellishments are sitting here, tags will tuck in the pocket nicely. So I'm going to pop those back inside now, and then just seal that down here. Okay, so if I've got a little bit of scrap card, I should have some bits left over somewhere. We'll use a piece of the paper. I've got some of that paper there. You can see now that this was the tuck. So tags or, you know, anything like that that I decide to use it for, you can put it inside there. Right, we're coming along nicely. I'm not sure the magnet bit's going to work, but I'm not too worried because it doesn't gape. It stands up nicely. Okay, I was just going to say what moved then, but I hadn't stuck this piece on, had I? So let's get that one stuck down. Again, we've got that tape around the edge. So everything's had a bit of a double whammy with the... I don't normally go to this kind of length when I'm just card making. But like I say, if it's a home decor project or something that I'm going to keep, then I want to make sure that it's not going to dry out and it's not going to fall apart on me. So again, I think my last little dregs of glue before I see if I've got, I think I have got another one. If not, I need to get some ordered. I'm sure I've got one. I've got a whole cupboard full of adhesives. I'm sure there is one in there. And then this is where our paper's going to go. I can't tell you how much in love I am with this particular paper collection of Michelle's. And she's done some fabulous, fabulous designs. You know, there's lots of different ones. So if this, I know this is not everybody's cup of tea. So if this one's not, you know, pop over to her Facebook page and have a look in the album section, and you'll be able to see the different designs that she's got going on. So that's the inside almost finished, and then the last thing we need to do is pop. Now then, this one is a pain in the bum to get the blue tape off. So I'm going to have to be patient. There we go, one. I did go a bit balmy with it, mainly because I've got quite a lot. I don't use the black as much as I do. This is actually black tape, so I didn't want the white showing underneath. And I have actually got a lot of it, so I put sort of a few pieces on to start with and thought, no, I don't want any dipping again in the front of the panel. So we went the whole hog, and we've now got more tape than we know what to do with. So yeah, you don't necessarily need this much. It was just Jan getting a bit carried away. Come along. It's been very, very naughty. I just need to get that top piece lifted. Oh, that one's got the tape as well. I get very impatient with things like this. I don't know whether you guys do. Let me see if I can come at that from that side, because it's lifted the edge of this sticky bit as well. There was bound to be one piece that didn't play, wasn't there? Right. Let me see if I can get that piece down there, and then I can address, yeah, that's it, and then we can address that bit in the end. So we can get rid of all this, and then the next bit is that it's very friendly, so I need to get rid of that into the scrap bin now. And then I want to pop a little bit that's just pulled the edge of the sticky off that edge there. And then I'm going to run, because my other glue's just about run out, I'm going to run some of this. And again, for the same reason, it's not that I don't trust the adhesive, it's just so that I can get this positioned and that tape doesn't grab so quickly that I get it not lined up. Okay, so get that the right way round. We've got the box the right way around, and my final piece is going to go in the centre of the lid there. Okay, now normally I would embellish things like this, but I don't want to with this one. I don't want to cover up. There isn't a piece of that I want to cover up. I am going to add a tiny, tiny little sentiment, and it is a tiny one. It says, own your story, and I just think that is applicable to so many different things, you know, whatever your story may be, whatever your journey may be. I just thought that was really, really applicable. Obviously, you know, the story with the books, the typewriter, the book, the pen, I thought it was really applicable. And this is one of my Tim Holtz sentiments that I've just mounted onto a little bit of the silver, just again to pick up that design. And I'm just going to pop it across. I did wonder whether to put it along here. What do you think? Should it go along the spine of the book? This goes against Jan's. Everything has to be straight. Oh, now then. You're probably all shouting at me now. Yeah, do it, do it, do it. Or don't do it, do it, do it. I've got to stay. I'm sorry, guys. I've got to stay with it straight. So I'm just going to pop it in that corner. The last thing I grabbed out of my drawer was I have got some little corner pieces, and I did wonder whether to pop these in or not. And again, I can't quite make my mind up. So I think for the time being, I am going to leave it without, but I did think they might be a nice finishing touch. But then I thought they're not particularly very vintagey, so it may be that I need to vintage them up with a bit of alcohol ink or something like that. Maybe they need to be black, actually. That's a thought. Maybe I actually go ahead and colour them with my alcohol markers and actually make them black. So I'm going to leave those off for the time being. I may add them later. But yeah, thinking about it, looking at them there, I'd got the silver ones because I'd got the silver mirror card, but I think they will look better in black. So that's something that I may add at a later date. So we'll leave those for now. And I think that is pretty much everything that I wanted to show you guys. I've got no bits left, so I must have used them all. A lot of tape, a lot of adhesive. I'm not sure that the magnet, as I say, I don't think it's strong enough now through all the layers. Is it gonna? Yeah, I don't think it is. Yeah, not to worry. But like I say, when it's stood up, you know, the lid isn't coming off the box, and the box, this is not, you know, falling open or anything, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. So that's my project today for those beautiful papers from Michelle McCarthy Crafts. So thank you to Michelle. I've absolutely loved, I've not decided what I'm going to do with the rest of them yet. I've absolutely loved playing with this and making this one today, using just a couple of those sheets out of there. So yeah, this is my book box. It measures 7.5 inches square, 2.5 inches deep, and then we've got the box inside with that paper, so everything matches. And then we've got the little tuck spot here that I can pop, you know, some pieces or tags or anything in, like so. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much to Michelle. She said to me, if you want any of the other collections, Jan, just let me know. So I might have to have a look through and see what else she's got there, as to whether I want to, if I've got any ideas for any of the others. But yeah, if you want to have a go at this, let me know. You know, I've got my Facebook page at JB Crafts, but also if you want to have a look at any of Michelle's papers, pop over there, have a look on her Facebook page, Michelle Max Crafters, and have a look in the albums, and you'll see all the different papers, and you can contact Michelle with regards to, you know, ordering them from her. Really, really, really glad that she's sort of found something that's keeping her busy. As you all know, you know, like I said at the beginning, we all used to work for Crafters Companion, along with Corinne as well. We all started our YouTube channels and we've gone in our own directions, and I hope everybody's doing well. So thanks again, Michelle. Thanks to everybody out there for watching. Please consider giving it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the project today, and I'll be back very soon with another tutorial for you guys. So bye for now.